This is the Jocko Underground Podcast number 2 with Echo Charles and me, Jocko Willink. And if you haven't caught wind of this yet, we have a little underground movement going. You can join the movement by going to jockounderground.com. Some additional information that we're putting out. The reason we're putting it out in this format, in this protected format, is that the right word?
Sure.
Is because there's some censorship happening in the world right now from a bunch of different angles: social media, traditional media, podcast platforms, video platforms, and we've been good for the most part. We've had some brushes, I guess we could say, but we just have to be cautious and make sure that we have a contingency plan in case things go real sideways. So that's what we're doing. And with that, our last one was about cognitive biases, and we're continuing down the path of talking about cognitive biases. We got some more to cover. Let's start off with, and these cognitive biases that we're going over, they come from a website, which is thevisualcapitalist.com, giving credit where credit is due. It's pretty simple and straightforward. One of these cognitive biases is called the Forer effect, or also known as the Barnum effect. And it says we easily attribute our personalities to vague statements, even if they can apply to a wide range of people. And this is the whole horoscope thing. Whenever people ask me, I always tell them some random thing. And they go, I knew you were a Scorpion. I knew you were a whatever, Libra, whatever. And then they get all excited.
Yeah.
They get all excited. And what I'll go too deep. I'll say I'm a Scorpio. And they go, I knew it. Mm-hmm. I knew it. And then I go, I'm just kidding. I'm not a Scorpio. They go, what? And I go, no, I'm Capricorn. And they go, oh, I get it. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, Capricorn would do that.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't buy into that thing.
Have you ever bought into?
No.
Never.
No.
Even when, my dad is heavy into it. I don't know if he believes it or if that's just a recreational thing, which can be the case. He's the kind. He'll first thing out of his mouth.
Let me ask you this: what if you were a bad person and you were running that?
Running what?
Running the whole thing. if you were writing those things up in the newspaper, it said, "This is going to be a terrible month for you. Threats on all sides. You are doomed." Right? Yeah. People are like,
yeah.
Because people it's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, I think, is what people hope for.
Yeah.
Right? This is going to be the best month. Financial rewards.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, in a way, right? I mean, there is function when you put it that way, a self-fulfilling prophecy, because that's a thing, right? Mm-hmm. Placebo, these are all essentially self-fulfilling prophecies in that way, good or bad. So if you're like, hey, you know what? And I'll pull this on my kids a lot. Be like, hey, you know what's good about you? It's like you're like strong, like you don't give up easy. That's such a, and they'll be like, and they'll same deal. So yeah, the horoscope, it can be the same thing, and they're usually like how this thing says vague, but at least it makes you feel good. Better than making you feel bad, I guess.
Yeah. I'm not into them.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't think I ever was into. My dad he'll like, hey, you're on the cusp. Like you tell him your birthday, he'll be like, how old are you? Whatever. He won't ask for it, but like if you offer up when your birthday is, that's the first thing out of his mouth.
Coming.
Oh, Capricorn. Oh, on the cusp. Oh, like when you're kind of. I'm like, bruh, all right. But yeah, you ever seen those experiments they do? Like you can watch videos about them where they're like sociological or psycho whatever, and they'll what? You see what I'm saying? No, they'll get a group of people and they'll be like they'll give them one of the horoscopes, right? Yeah. And they'll give them all the same one, and then they'll say, hey, okay, raise your hand if your horoscope applied to you, right? Or if you think you got your horoscope or something like that. I forget the exact name, but it's essentially that. And everyone raises their hand, or most people raise their hand, and they have different rounds and different methods of doing it, and they do it, and it essentially proves or shows strong evidence, we'll say, that it applies to everyone. All you got to do is be like, read it and yeah, it applies to me because your brain finds ways for it to apply to you. Oh, you're not easy to you have a hard shell, but once you get in there, you have a big heart, like that kind of stuff, you know, where it's kind of like no one's really gonna.
That's the most generic thing ever.
Yeah, and it kind of applies to everyone if you just think about it in one way or another, because you can just kind of morph your real self around that. It's kind of like, yeah, that's true. I have a lot of friends, but, you know, they don't know the real me. You know, like that kind of stuff.
There's Echo Charles reading his horoscope, keeping it real. The Dunning-Kruger effect. The less you know, the more confident you are. The more you know, the less confident you are. Francis confidently assures the group that there is no kelp in ice cream. They do not work in the dairy industry. Interesting. My best example, there was this really good Marine who was like kind of a legendary Marine, and he started training jiu-jitsu, and he had this realization. Like, he was real confident before he started training jiu-jitsu, and then once he started training jiu-jitsu, he was kind of thinking, yeah, I'm not as badass as I thought I was. Yeah. That's the same with everything.
Yeah, it seems like that when you can understand it when you just think about it for a second. Because you know how, like, in jiu-jitsu, how you say it's like, that's a good example, because before you get in there and really understand it, you just have this idea of like, yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I know.
Well, I would never let you pull my arm over there. I would just stop that from happening.
Yep.
No, not so easy.
Yeah. It's like you don't know what you don't know kind of thing, versus when you are competent, like super competent, you know how much you know, but you know how much there is to know, and you don't know anything, kind of an attitude.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's nice about, you know, in jiu-jitsu. I would say jiu-jitsu probably taught me this. I may have had some inkling of it, but man, then you realize it's the same with everything. Man, I don't know nothing about nothing. Like, you start looking at any sort of world, right? And you go, I don't actually know anything about that. You think you do, but then if you do jiu-jitsu, you go, I thought I knew about that. I didn't know anything. Yeah. So therefore, I don't know anything about other worlds, other subjects.
Yeah. Have you Can you remember a time that this applied to you and you came to that realization?
I mean, jiu-jitsu is the most obvious one.
Yeah. Yeah, jiu-jitsu is. Boxing is like that too.
Boxing is like that. Oh, Muay Thai. Yeah. The first time I sparred a legit Muay Thai guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, because I was like, oh, you know, Muay Thai striking is kind of linear. Yeah, it's kind of linear. Yeah, you know, it's just you're either kicking or you're punching. It's pretty.
Yeah. I can throw.
This guy Mike Rigner. He's a badass, like real Muay Thai guy, and I would start to throw a kick, and he would either just kick me before I could kick him, or he would just be waiting to check it. And you know, I was thinking, basically in boxing and in Muay Thai, the same way a white belt gets destroyed in jiu-jitsu is the same way if you don't know how to box, you're getting destroyed. Yeah. There is a little bit of a, you know, look, we have a puncher's chance and all that stuff. So there is some level of primal fighting that a human can naturally do that will be more effective than the primal fight. The primal fighting that you do in jiu-jitsu is counter. It's wrong. Yeah. It's you're doing the wrong thing. In boxing and Muay Thai, at least it's in the same zone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Anchoring. We rely heavily on the first piece of information introduced when making decisions. Yeah.
First impression.
And I talk about this one a lot from the fact of what you learn. The first way you learn something is what becomes the de facto proper way. You anchor to that subject. Yeah. I always talk about guys in their first SEAL platoon. Mm-hmm. However you learn something in your first SEAL platoon, that's what you think is right if you're not careful. If you're careful, you go, oh, you know what? My platoon chief maybe wasn't right about everything. Yeah. If you're not careful, you're like, this is the way you do it. Yeah. Same thing with jiu-jitsu, same thing with anything. You got to be careful of that one. Got to be suspect. Automation bias. We rely on automated systems, sometimes trusting too much in the automated correction of actually correct decisions. Your phone autocorrects its to its with an apostrophe. And that is a little excerpt of what we are doing on the Jocko Underground podcast. So if you want to continue to listen, go to jockounderground.com and subscribe. And we're doing this to mitigate our reliance on external platforms so we are not subject to their control. And we're doing it so we can give you more control, more interaction, more direct connections, better communications with us, strengthen this legion of troopers that are in the game with us. So thank you. It's jockounderground.com. It costs $8.18 a month. And if you can't afford to support us, we can still support you. Just email assistance@jockounderground.com and we'll get you taken care of. Until then, we will see you mobilized underground.